Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping straight in today with a really remarkable story.
We are. It's about national transformation, specifically how Ireland reached this huge milestone about 10 years back.
Right, and we've got an excerpt we've been looking at that lays out this journey.
Exactly. And our mission really is to unpack it, not just what happened, but the key moments.
The driving forces behind the changes.
Yes, and maybe what this whole Irish experience tells us about bigger themes, like social progress, human rights.
And how a country's own story can, well, shape how it acts globally. It's a fascinating case study.
Definitely. Ireland is the focus. And the defining moment, the one this piece really highlights, is May 22nd, 2015.
Okay, May 22nd. What happened then?
Well, that was the day Ireland became the very first country in the world to bring in marriage equality through a popular vote.
A referendum. Wow, so the people voted directly.
Exactly. And you have to think Ireland, often seen as, well, historically quite conservative.
Yeah, that makes it feel like a massive shift. The description of that day in the source, it sounds really vivid.
Oh, it is. It paints this picture of just immense public pride, real joy.
You can almost feel it.
Yeah, the author mentions watching the vote count on TV, that feeling of happiness everywhere, and then taking their young son into Dublin city center.
To Dublin Castle, where the results were announced.
Specifically so he could witness it, see that history being made. It really captures the mood.
I bet. The source mentions buses, cars honking.
People everywhere, all ages, hugging, dancing. It sounds, well, electric.
Like a genuine revolution, as the piece puts it, that feeling that Ireland would never be the same again.
And it wasn't just about the law changing, The real power of it, and the source really nails this, was that it was an affirmation by the people.
Not just politicians or judges.
No, it was like people's mothers, their aunts, cousins, neighbors, everyone saying love is equal.
Saying everyone deserves dignity, regardless of who they love.
Exactly. That public mandate, that's what made it so unique, so powerful.
And that energy, that momentum from 2015, it didn't just stop there, did it?
No, it absolutely carried forward. Just a month later, actually, in the same year, another big legal change happened.
Oh, what was that?
The Gender Recognition Act came into force.
Okay, and what did that act do?
It basically allowed transgender people in Ireland to self-declare their gender on official documents, change their legal gender.
So, wow. Within weeks, two major steps towards equality and dignity.
Yeah, pretty rapid succession there.
But the source is really clear, isn't it? These changes, they didn't just appear out of nowhere.
Not at all, and that's crucial. This was built on, well, decades of hard graft.
Years and years of work by activists, civil society groups.
Absolutely relentless work, often completely unseen. Campaigners were central. They brought their own lives, their stories.
Stories of discrimination, oppression, even violence.
Yeah, those raw personal experiences, they brought them right into the national conversation.
That must have been incredibly powerful, sharing those personal stories, changing hearts and minds, especially as society was changing anyway.
It was fundamental. Think about the groundwork. Years of intense debate, strategizing,
Protests, court cases.
countless meetings, fundraising, building community networks, all that stuff.
The source mentions deliberative democracy structures, too. What's that about?
It's basically finding ways to bring diverse groups together
Yeah.
for focused, informed discussions on really tough topics.
So, getting citizens deeply involved in hashing things out.
Exactly. All that sustained effort, that was the bedrock for the eventual referendum campaign.
So the campaign strategy, it wasn't just dry legal points. It was about mobilizing people, appealing to something deeper.
Precisely. And the appeals worked because they tapped into, core Irish values. Fairness, inclusion, respect.
And it reached across generations, too, right? The source mentions older people.
Yeah, people born way back in the 1930s who grew up in a totally different Ireland. It says they listened.
Their willingness to engage, to understand, and ultimately vote yes. That's powerful.
It really is. It played a massive role in shaping the more open, compassionate, freer Ireland you see now. Speaks volumes about how societies can evolve.
And this whole journey, it didn't just kick off in the years leading up to 2015. It stretches back further.
It does. The source points to a really critical turning point back in 1993.
Okay, 1993. What happened then?
That's when same-sex sexual relations between consenting men were finally decriminalized.
Ah, right. That must have felt like a huge barrier removed.
Absolutely. It really helped pave the way, for everything that came later.
So you can see this timeline emerging. Decriminalization in 93, then decades of activism,
Building momentum, changing attitudes.
leading up to those massive legal changes and that incredible public vote in 2015.
Yeah, Ireland has been kind of steadily dismantling these barriers, trying to protect and improve life for the LGBTQIA+ community.
And it's not like they think the job is done now.
No, definitely not. The source makes that clear. The struggle continues. There are still challenges.
Like the recent strategy document.
Exactly. Just last November 2023, they published the National LGBTQI+ Inclusion Strategy.
And what's the aim of that?
Well, it's pretty comprehensive. It lists over 100 specific actions.
100 actions. Aimed at what?
Promoting inclusion, strengthening legal protections, and really just improving quality of life and well-being for LGBTQIA+ people across Ireland.
So it really reinforces this idea that it's an ongoing commitment, not just a historical moment.
Absolutely. It reflects this core belief, which the source reiterates. Every single person is entitled to equality, dignity, full rights.
Regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, anything else.
Exactly, without exception.
Now, what I find particularly interesting is how this whole domestic journey, this hard-won progress, how
Wow.
it connects to Ireland's role internationally.
Yeah, this is where their own experience really gives their foreign policy a kind of authenticity. They know firsthand what the struggle's like.
And they're very aware that LGBTQIA+ rights are under threat elsewhere.
Acutely aware. They see what's happening globally, the dangers people face.
And the source highlights that reality, discrimination, harassment.
Persecution, even fatal violence.
Mm-hmm.
Just for being who you are,
Mm.
it's unacceptable, as the source says.
And it ties back to the idea of universal human rights.
Absolutely. The core principle is universality rights apply to everyone, everywhere. And you can't have true universality if LGBTQIA+ people's rights aren't protected.
And international law backs this up.
It does. There's a clear duty under international law for all states, all countries, to respect, protect, and fulfill human rights for everyone without discrimination.
Regardless of politics or culture.
Regardless, that obligation stands.
So Ireland's own story directly feeds into how they advocate on the world stage.
Precisely. Promoting and protecting civil society, supporting human rights defenders globally. The source says this is a core priority for their foreign policy.
And it's explicitly linked back to their own journey.
Yes. It says it's based on Ireland's own experience of social progress, the path they traveled themselves.
That's a really powerful connection. They've seen it happen. They know what's possible when people can speak up, organize.
Exactly that. The lesson they learned at home, what happens when people are empowered to speak, organize, and lead, that's now a principle they champion internationally.
So these values, they aren't just abstract ideals for them.
No, they live through it. And that experience, it underpins their global work, including promoting LGBTQIA+ rights. It gives them, a certain credibility.
So as Ireland marks this 10-year anniversary of the marriage vote, it's not just looking back.
No, very much about looking forward. With renewed determination, there's immense pride, of course, in the progress.
But it's coupled with a strong commitment to keep going.
Keep pushing forward, both at home with things like the inclusion strategy and internationally through their foreign policy work.
Reaffirming that stand for equality, inclusion, universal human rights.
For everyone. There's a lovely Irish saying in the source. Ní niar go cúil sé.
What does that mean?
It means we are stronger when we act together. Sort of captures the whole spirit, doesn't it?
It really does. The journey isn't over, but the commitment's there. The hope is strong.
Hope forged through their own experience.
So this deep dive, drawing its insights from that article in the Indian Express, it really offers a powerful example. Ireland's shift from, well, a more conservative past.
To now being a leader advocating for LGBTQIA+ rights internationally.
All driven by that persistent activism, public engagement, legal reform. It shows profound social change is possible.
And maybe the final thought for you listening is, given this evolution in Ireland, what does it tell us about the potential for any country to change, maybe significantly, on human rights?
And does that progress create a responsibility? A responsibility maybe for nations to promote those universal rights globally using their own experience.
It's definitely something to reflect on. Big questions about international relations, national identity in today's world.
A lot to think about there. We hope this exploration of Ireland's story has been insightful for you.
Yeah, if you found it valuable, or if you have more questions, please do let us know. Like, subscribe, leave a comment.
We appreciate you joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for listening and exploring this important topic with us.